And how's everybody doing today? This is Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and I'm going to tie up another bug for you, but just so you guys know, this is a little PSA. If you go fishing with @Fishing Josh, aka Fish Josh Phillips, whatever you want to call him, don't bet him that you can outfish him unless you already have a stringer somewhere behind you that he doesn't see. I did make that bet and I lost. So today I am forced to give up one of my favorite secret flies, and that would be what I call the after dinner midge. You might know similar versions of this fly, a chromie or whatever you want to call it. There are a million different versions. This is just how I happen to make mine, and it is a fish slayer. We were not fishing this fly the day I lost the bet because that might have made a difference. But I hope you guys enjoy, and if you do, please remember to hit like and subscribe at the end of the video, and we'll be sure to crank out as much content that gets you into some fishy situations as we possibly can. Thanks guys, we'll see you soon. All right, so here we've got the Core 1120 series. This is a size 12. For the bead, I've got a white bead. This is the brass Dazzle bead from Hareline, size 7/64 inch. And the reason I'm using this white bead is because I'm trying to do two things here, and that's get a little weight. And then the other thing is to mimic the breathing filaments of the midge. They have these little filaments in both the head and the tail, but we're just concerned with the ones at the head. And I've tied this with many different color beads, and this one just seems to work the best, so we're gonna go with that. I'm gonna put probably 5 or 6 wraps of 0.015, this non-lead weighted wire, and clip that out of the front, round off that cut edge just a little bit, and get it slicked into the back of that bead. And then we're going to come in and cut the rear portion the same way and round over the cut edge. And this is just to, 1, keep a very uniform underbody, and 2, not to cut your thread. There we go. So this fly is going to utilize 2 different thread colors. The first one is Peacock blue, and this is ultra thread 70 denier. And we're going to start this right behind the bead, and like so. We'll come back up, trim that thread, and I'm just going to make a couple passes with some 45-degree angle here, forward and then back, and this is going to give me a little structure or coverage of those wires. And then the third time I'm going to just go in between each wire wrap, and that will really cinch down all that other thread. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our bubble wing on the top. And to do so, here's a piece of silver small ultra wire. I'm going to tie that in on top with just a few loose thread wraps, 3 or 4. And the reason being, I'm going to now pull this up, and I don't want very much tag there. That's about all I want right there. And we're going to finish wrapping this all the way to just behind the bead, where when we pull up on that wire, it's still in contact with the front bead. And now I'm going to pull this wire back so you can see on this open end here that's out over the front of the hook eye. I'm going to slip on a size 15 clear craft bead. Now when I pull this wire back, I'm going to maintain downward pressure on this thread and catch it right like so. The reason being, I want that bead to sit on top of our weighted wire and be in the same position that it would be on the natural. Once you've got it exactly where you want it, continue tying down this wire with a few more wraps. Go past the butt end of where we started that ribbing wire. We are not going to use this as a rib, so we can cut that out. And just with your finger, mash that down to make sure it's not going to stick out. All right, so now let's get to that bead and secure it. So we're going to make a few X wraps or figure 8 wraps, and that's all it's going to take. All right, so far so good. now we're going to start tying in the rib, and for the rib I'm going to use a silk thread, and this is an orange color. And so let's talk real quickly about this blue thread underneath. We're going to have a Mirage Opal Tinsel Mirage body, and I've done this with every color of thread as the underbody. Red thread seems to turn an orangish tone. They all work. However, none of them work as well as a blue thread underneath for some reason. So that's why we're using it. And now this orange, you could use red, you could use black, you could use any color. We're just trying to get that segmentation. And if you've seen a lot of the naturals, they have these red, green, silver tones. I mean, they're just amazing little critters. All right, so now for the next part of our body, I'm gonna just get a little piece of oval Mirage tinsel. This is size large, and I'm going to tie that in right on top of where I tied in our ribbing thread. And catch that. Once I've got it secured with just a few wraps, I'm going to spin my thread counterclockwise, and so that when I'm wrapping down and back up, I really want a flattened out thread so that I'm in control of how much taper this body is going to have. All right, and now holding both of these in my off hand, my left hand, I'm going to continue tying back. And don't tie all the way back to where your vise is, because that first wrap of tinsel needs just a little bit of room. So once we're happy with our stopping point of the body, let's come back up, get one wrap in front of the bead, come back behind, and I'm going to make another full pass of these thread wraps all the way down again, so that I've got some pretty decent coverage underneath when I start to wrap that tinsel. And now, once I've gotten up here, I'm going to tie this off. And you'll see why in just a second. So now for our second thread, we have black in the ultra thread. Again, 70 denier. I'm going to start that with a couple thread wraps right behind the bead, then I'll go to behind the bubble wing and make a few more figure eights. And that's ready for us now to wrap our body materials. All right, so first we have the Mirage tinsel. And then when I wrap this, I like to have overlapping wraps. And this first one, make sure that butt, if you will, is tight. You don't want to bulge there that shouldn't be there. And then from there, it's just a matter of taking your time. I'm trying to keep this tilted at you guys so you can kind of see what's going on here. Get this rib out of the way. All right. And this fly is just deadly. I fish it year round in still water. It's just a great producer, and as you see, the illusion of this shimmer or shininess to the body is what we're going for. Excuse me. Get that out one more time. All right, so now I'm going to take one wrap in front here, but I'm not going to tie it down yet. I'm switching to my offhand, and now I'll take a thread wrap in front, and then one behind the bubble wing, and another one in front of the bubble wing behind the regular bead. And that's enough to trap that so that I can trim this out. Since we have another element coming up here, we don't want to spend a lot of time tying all this down because we need plenty of room to build up a little bit of a thorax. All right, so midges, when they're ready to break out of that exoskeleton, they produce these gases inside of there, and it pushes that body, just gives them a little bit of room to crack it open, if you will. But those gases reflect light like crazy, and you get this shiny looking body. All right, so now let's wrap this rib. For the rib, I'm going to counter wrap. And the nice thing about having these little edges where we overlap the wraps with our tinsel is the thread is actually going to catch in those grooves as we counter wrap this toward the front. And let's get, let me turn this just so I can see that first wrap. All right. So hopefully this works. I really can't see what that other side is looking like, but you guys can let me know if it needs to move. And now we've got one more wrap. This is the one that's going to come in front. Now, same deal, I'm going to take one wrap behind that bead and I'll turn this over so you can see how it trapped that rib. And then I'm going to go in front of the bead and come behind it again. So there's 3 wraps essentially that solidify the positioning of our rib. Trim that out. And at this point, it's just a matter of coverage to get rid of all that stuff, let everybody know what we're doing. We don't want that. So we're gonna cover it up with as many wraps of thread as this takes. So be patient, take your time, make every wrap count. There's no useless wraps. These are all necessary if you give each one a purpose. Looking pretty mean so far. And I'm pretty happy with the coverage there. And now we've got just a little bit of a buildup to show the thorax of this bug. Nothing crazy. And it also helps to accentuate that bubble on top, make it look like those wing buds are trying to break through. It is just got so many triggers going on in this fly. So I'm gonna take 2 wraps behind our bubble wing and then 3 in front behind the regular bead for the first whip finish. And I'll do that one more time. 2 wraps behind and 3 in the front. And we have got ourselves one nasty looking midge. Now, one nice thing about doing this too, and at this point you could use some resin or whatever you like to coat your flies with. I'm just gonna use some Loon hardhead, but I want you to pay attention to the rib. Right now it just kind of sits there. It's not real distinct, but like anything, once it gets wet, it's going to just slightly darken and just kind of stand out a little bit more. And that's what we're looking for. That's what the naturals look like. And again, if you've not seen these bugs, go ahead and find a way to see some. They're fascinating little critters, and I do mean little. But it will definitely change the way you tie your midges if you get to see a couple of the naturals. They're very slim. Usually very, very small. So this one is, on the larger side of the scale for midges. All right. So there we go. Once that dries, I'm probably gonna go fishing. So I think you guys should all join me. Go ahead and tie up a few of these. Once you're happy, throw them in your box and let's all go fishing. I hope you guys enjoyed this fly. It's one of my favorites. And again, I call this the after dinner midge. You probably know it by the chromie or a couple other different names. So this is just my take on that, and it is a very successful fly. I had a lot of fun with this one. I hope you guys do too. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit like and subscribe at the end, and we'll see you next time.